I'll be sitting in an audience with you and I expect you to step up and get involved. Because the country needs you. And if the brain power and talent that's on display here today and throughout this conference takes up that baton, then I'm going to be really confident about the future of this country. All right. Thank you, guys. Barack Obama. Press conference on Syria and sundry topics. Delivered April 30, 2013, White House, Washington, D. C. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. I am here to answer questions in honor of Ed Henry. As he wraps up his tenure as president of the White House Correspondents Association. Ed, because of that, you get the first question. Congratulations. Question, thank you, sir, I really appreciate that. And I hope we can go back to business and being mad at each other a little bit. President Obama, I'm not mad at you. Question, okay, good. Thank you, I appreciate that. President Obama, you may be mad at me. Question. And then on Benghazi, there are some survivors of that terror attack who say they want to come. Forward and testify, some in your State Department, and they say they've been blocked. Will you allow them to testify? President Obama, well, first of all, on Syria, I think it's important to understand that for several years now what we've been seeing is a slowly unfolding disaster for the Syrian people. And this is not a situation in which we've been simply bystanders to what's been happening. My policy from the beginning has been that President Assad had lost credibility, that he attacked his own people. Has killed his own people, unleashed a military against innocent civilians. And that the only way to bring stability and peace to Syria is going to be for Assad to step down and to move forward on a political transition. In pursuit of that strategy, we've organized the international community. We are the largest humanitarian donor. We have worked to strengthen the opposition. We have provided non-lethal assistance to the opposition. We have applied sanctions on Syria. So, there are a whole host of steps that we've been taking precisely because, even separate from the chemical weapons issue, what's happening in Syria is a blemish on the international community generally. And we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the Syrian people. In that context, what I've also said is that the use of chemical weapons would be a game changer not simply for the United States but for the international community. And the reason for that is that we have established international law and international norms that say when you use these kinds of weapons, you have the potential of killing massive numbers of people in the most inhumane way possible. And the proliferation risks are so significant that we don't want that genie out of the bottle. So when I said that the use of chemical weapons would be a game changer, that wasn't a position unique to the United States, and it shouldn't have been a surprise. And what we now have is evidence that chemical weapons have been used inside of Syria. But we don't know how they were used, when they were used, who used them. We don't have a chain of custody that establishes what exactly happened. And when I am making decisions about America's national security and the potential for taking additional action in response to chemical weapon use, I've got to make sure I've got the facts. That's what the American people would expect. And if we end up rushing to judgment without hard, effective evidence, then we can find ourselves in a position where we can't mobilize the international community to support what we do. There may be objections even among some people in the region. Who are sympathetic with the opposition if we take action. So it's important for us to do this in a prudent way. And what I've said to my team is we've got to do everything we can to investigate and establish with some certainty what exactly has happened in Syria, what is happening in Syria. We will use all the assets and resources that we have at our disposal. We'll work with the neighboring countries to see whether we can establish a clear baseline of facts. And we've also called on the United Nations to investigate. But the important point I want to make here is that we already are deeply engaged in trying to bring about a solution in Syria. It is a difficult problem. But even if chemical weapons were not being used in Syria, we'd still be thinking about tens of thousands of people, innocent civilians, women. Children who've been killed by a regime that's more concerned about staying in power than it is about the well-being of its people. And so we are already deeply invested in trying to find a solution here. What is true, though, is that if I can establish in a way that not only the United States, but also the international community feel confident is the use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime, then that is a game changer, because what that portends is potentially even more devastating attacks on civilians. And it raises the strong possibility that those chemical weapons can fall into the wrong hands and get disseminated in ways that would threaten you. As security or the security of our allies. Question: by game changer you mean you? As military action? President Obama, by game changer I mean that we would have to rethink the range of options that are available to us. Now, we're already, as I've said, invested in trying to bring about a solution inside of Syria. Obviously, there are options that are available to me that are on the shelf right now that we have not deployed. And that's a spectrum of options. As early as last year, I asked the Pentagon our military, our intelligence officials to prepare for me what options might be available. And I won't go into the details of what those options might be, but clearly that would be an escalation. In our view, of the threat to the security of the international community, our allies, and the United States. And that means that there are some options that we might not otherwise exercise that we would strongly consider. Question, and on the Benghazi portion. I know pieces of this story have been litigated, you've been asked about it. But there are people in your own State Department saying they've been blocked from coming forward. That they survived the terror attack and they want to tell their story? Will you help them come forward and just say it once and for all? President Obama, Ed, I'm not familiar with this notion that anybody has been blocked from testifying. So what I'll do is I will find out what exactly you're referring to. What I've been very clear about from the start is that our job with respect to Benghazi has been to find out exactly what happened, to make sure that U.S. embassies not just in the middle East but around the world are safe and secure, and to bring those who carried it out to justice. But I'll find out what exactly you're referring to. Question, they've hired an attorney because they're saying that they've been blocked from coming forward. President Obama, I'm not familiar with it. Jessica. Question, thank you, Mr. President. There's a report that your Director of National Intelligence has ordered a broad review. This is regards to the Boston Marathon bombing that your DNI has ordered a broad review of all the intelligence gathering prior to the attack. There is also a series of Senators Susan Collins, Saxby Chambliss. Lindsey Graham, who alleged that all these years after September 11, there still wasn't enough intelligence shared prior to the attack. And now, Lindsey Graham, who is a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, has said that Benghazi and Boston are both examples of the US going backwards. On national security. Is he right? And did our intelligence miss something? President Obama, no, Mr. Graham is not right on this issue, although I'm sure generated some headlines. I think that what we saw in Boston was state, local, federal officials. Every agency rallying around a city that had been attacked, identifying the perpetrators just hours after the scene had been examined. We now have one individual deceased, one in custody. Charges have been brought. I think that all our law enforcement officials performed. In an exemplary fashion after the bombing had taken place. And we should be very proud of their work, as obviously we're proud of the people of Boston and all the first responders and the medical personnel that helped save lives. What we also know is that the Russian intelligence services had alerted you. Intelligence about the older brother, as well as the mother. Indicating that they might be sympathizers to extremists. The FBI investigated that older brother. It's not as if the FBI did nothing. They not only investigated the older brother, they interviewed the older brother. They concluded that there were no signs that he was engaging in extremist activity. So that much we know.